Catherine O'Malley sat unobtrusively in seat 21A, a window seat on American Airlines Flight 812, looking for all the world like another consultant heading from Chicago to San Francisco, her mind a quiet battlefield between the woman she was and the woman she had been. No one gave a second glance to the woman in the simple gray sweater and dark jeans, her auburn hair pulled back in a neat, functional ponytail, a style chosen for efficiency, not fashion. They couldn't possibly know she was Colonel Catherine Wraith O'Malley, a pilot whose name was spoken with a mixture of reverence and awe in the briefing rooms and ready rooms of the United States Air Force, a name she had fought for 4 years, to leave behind in the roar of jet engines and the metallic tang of afterburner fuel, when an unidentified hostile aircraft began a terrifyingly precise approach, and a pair of F-15 Eagles screamed into view like avenging angels. The pilots on the emergency escort frequency heard a call sign they thought was long retired, a ghost from the annals of aerial combat. In that single electrifying moment, as a name from legend crackled through the static, the entire situation transformed from a crisis into a reckoning. Before you hear the rest of this incredible account, drop a comment letting us know where you're listening from. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more true stories of heroism that prove legends walk among us. The early morning light slanted through the massive windows of Chicago O'Hare International, illuminating the controlled chaos of travelers, a river of humanity flowing toward destinations unknown. Amidst the sea of rolling suitcases and anxious faces, Catherine moved with a practiced calm, her movements economical and precise, her gaze constantly, subconsciously scanning choke points, exits, and individuals who broke the pattern of the crowd. At 38, she possessed a quiet intensity that colleagues in her new civilian life mistook for fierce corporate focus, never guessing it was forged in the high G turns of aerial combat over hostile territory. The only clue to her former life was the rugged, no-frills watch on her wrist, a standard-issue timepiece whose battered bezel and glowing tritium vials would only be recognized by a fellow service member, a silent fraternity pin. Gate K-19 was a symphony of airport sounds, the melodic chime of boarding announcements, the sharp cry of a tired baby, and the low hum of 100 different conversations. Catherine found a spot away from the main throng, pulling a well-worn copy of a military history book from her backpack, the irony not lost on her. She had perfected the art of becoming invisible, of blending into the background, a skill she valued almost as much as her once instinctive ability to fly on the ragged edge of an aircraft's performance envelope. Years of deflecting well-meaning, but probing questions about her interesting career had taught her that anonymity was a luxury harder to achieve than a missile lock. American Airlines Flight 812 to San Francisco is now boarding all groups, a cheerful voice announced, pulling her from a passage about the P-51 Mustang. Catherine marked her page, slipped the book into her bag, and merged seamlessly into the line, just another face in the queue. The routine was a comfort, a welcome slice of normalcy in a life that had been anything but. No one made eye contact. No one cared who she was. It was exquisitely, perfectly mundane. Finding her seat, 21A, she settled in for the long flight, her body relaxing into the familiar confines of an airline seat. Her neighbors soon arrived. Arthur Vance, a kindly-looking history professor in his late 60s with a tweed jacket and a gentle smile, and Maya Singh, a young, bright-eyed tech intern whose entire world seemed to exist on the screen of her smartphone. Headed west for work or fun? Arthur asked as the cabin slowly filled, his voice warm and academic. A bit of both, Catherine offered, her smile polite but distant, a carefully constructed barrier. I consult for a tech firm in the Bay Area, helping them streamline their global logistics. Ah, Silicon Valley, a modern-day gold rush. Arthur mused, adjusting his spectacles. I've been teaching ancient history for 40 years. It's fascinating to watch history being made in real time out there, even if it is all just ones and zeros. What kind of consulting do you do? Maya chimed, in momentarily looking up from her screen. Her curiosity piqued. Catherine had her cover story down pat, a narrative so practiced it felt almost real. Logistics and operational efficiency. It sounds more exciting than it is, mostly spreadsheets and flowcharts. I'm Maya, the young woman said, offering a quick smile. Interning at a software company this summer. This is my first time flying alone for work. Catherine, it's a pleasure. The small talk continued as the plane taxied, a gentle dance of pleasantries about the unpredictable Chicago weather, the exorbitant rents in San Francisco, and the merits of various airline loyalty programs. As the flight attendants started their safety briefing, Catherine's focus sharpened with an intensity that would have startled her seatmates. Her gaze swept the cabin, her mind a silent, whirring computer. She automatically noted the 3 exits, the placement of the 4. Flight attendants, counted the number of able-bodied male passengers who might be an asset in an emergency, and registered the faint, almost imperceptible change in the engine's vibration as the flaps were set for takeoff. It was a deeply ingrained habit, a tactical assessment of her environment she couldn't turn off, a ghost of the pilot still living inside the consultant. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen! From the flight deck," the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, calm and reassuring. "This is Captain Davies. We're anticipating a smooth ride out to the coast today with an estimated flight time of 4 hours and 10 minutes. Cabin crew, please prepare for takeoff." The massive Airbus A321 pushed back from the gate, its powerful engines whining to life. Catherine watched the familiar landscape of O'Hare slip away, the vast, flat grid of the Midwest stretching out below as they ascended into the crisp, impossibly blue morning sky. For a fleeting moment, a pang of longing hit her, a visceral ache to be in the cockpit, to feel the controls in her hands instead of being a passive passenger. "You know," Arthur said as the seatbelt sign switched off and the beverage cart began its slow journey down the aisle. "My father was a bombardier in World War II, flew 25 missions in a B-17 over Germany. The stories he told. It was a different era of aerial combat, raw courage and nerves of steel, nothing but a sheet of aluminum between you and eternity." Catherine's posture tensed almost imperceptibly, but her expression remained neutral, a carefully maintained mask. It must have been an incredible experience for him. Indeed, these days, it's all about technology, those F-22s, F-35s. My goodness. The pilots who fly them are a different breed entirely, more like astronauts than the pilots my father knew. They say they're the best of the best, with reflexes and situational awareness beyond normal human comprehension. He told me about one pilot, a legend from the last big conflict. They called her Wraith. Said she could make a billion-dollar fighter jet vanish from enemy radar, a true ghost in the machine. Fascinating stuff. Catherine's heart skipped a beat, but she simply nodded. "Sounds like something out of a movie." Maya added, "My cousin flies drones for the Air Force. He says even that is incredibly intense, and he talks about the fighter pilots like they're actual superheroes from the comics." "Ever been to an air show, Catherine?" Arthur asked. "To see one of those machines up close? To feel the sound of it rip through your chest? It's breathtaking." "Once or twice," Catherine replied, her voice carefully non-committal, her gaze shifting back to the window, a gentle signal that the conversation was over. Arthur, a perceptive man, took the hint and opened his newspaper. Far below, deep within the granite heart of Cheyenne Mountain, Staff Sergeant Eva Rostova's eyes narrowed at a flicker on her radar screen. The NORAD operations floor hummed with the quiet, focused confidence of the nation's watchdogs. "NORAD Command, this is Sentry 4, Rostova reported, her voice calm but firm into her headset, the slight accent from her native Poland adding a crisp edge to the words. I have an unidentified track appearing 200 miles east of Omaha. No transponder, no flight plan. It's moving at 600 knots and flying at just 2,000 feet. Major General Pike. A man whose placid demeanor concealed a mind. Like a steel trap walked over, his gaze fixed on the glowing green symbol on Rostova's screen. Classification? Unknown, sir. It's flying in a dead zone between commercial routes, a perfect blind spot. But its current trajectory will intersect with the main westbound corridor in precisely 19 minutes. The flight profile is too aggressive and too precise for a civilian craft. It feels predatory. Pike's jaw tightened. This wasn't a lost Cessna. This was deliberate. It's testing our response time. It's probing. Alert Scott Air Force. Base, I want a flight of Eagles in the air 5 minutes ago. Scramble 2 F-15s for intercept. I want eyes on that bogey now. Tell them rules of engagement are for visual identification and escort, but to be prepared for anything. At Scott AFB, the klaxon's shriek ripped through the morning calm of the ready room. Major David Ram Calloway and Captain Ben Jinks. Wallace were halfway through a joke when the alarm blared. They didn't hesitate. They were in their flight gear and sprinting across the tarmac before the echo faded, their ground crew meeting them at their jets like a perfectly choreographed ballet. Within 3 minutes, 2 F-15 Eagles were rocketing into the sky, their afterburners painting fiery trails against the blue canvas. Eagle lead to Eagle 2. Calloway's voice was pure steel over the comms, the easygoing man from the ready room gone, replaced by the focused warrior. We're wheels up, climbing to 30,000. Let's stay sharp, Jinx. Command sounds. Twitchy on this one. Copy, Ram, Wallace replied from his wing, his own voice tight with adrenaline. Got the bogey on my scope, bearing 295 Angels 20. He's fast. Closing fast. Aboard Flight 812, the beverage service was underway. A bubble of airborne normalcy. Maya was the first to see them, tiny, fleeting specks of silver glinting against the deep blue. "Whoa, are those fighter jets?" she asked, pressing her face against the plexiglass. Catherine's gaze followed, her blood turning to ice. She didn't need to guess. She recognized the distinctive twin tails, the powerful engine configuration, and the aggressive flight profile instantly. F-15 Eagles on a full afterburner intercept vector. Her whole body went on high alert, but she kept her voice placid, a practiced calm she didn't feel. Sometimes they run training drills in these air corridors. It's nothing to worry about. Arthur peered across the aisle, his interest piqued. Post 9/11 vigilance. They don't take any chances, and rightfully so. But Catherine knew this wasn't training. The angle of their approach, the speed, the way they were positioning themselves relative to the civilian traffic, this was real. The geometry was all wrong for an exercise. This was a live intercept, and they were flying toward something dangerous. In the cockpit of the lead F-15, Major Calloway got a visual. NORAD, Eagle lead has visual. Target is a sleek delta-wing drone. No national markings. Looks experimental, possibly coated with radar-absorbent material. It's beautiful in a terrifying way. Copy, Eagle lead. Assess intent. Attempt to hail on all standard and emergency frequencies. Eagle 2? I'm picking up some heavy electronic. Emissions from the target, Wallace reported, his instruments lighting up. Feels like it's actively scanning us, and it's painting the commercial traffic up ahead. It's mapping the civilian airliners, sir. NORAD, Eagle lead. Calloway's voice sharpened with cold urgency. Recommend immediate rerouting of all civilian flights in this sector. This drone is emitting powerful electronic signals. I believe this is a prelude to a hostile act. It's targeting the airliners. The order from air traffic control came instantly, a clipped, no-nonsense command that cut through the routine chatter. American 812, Chicago Center. You are instructed to alter course immediately. Heading 180, descend and maintain. 5000, acknowledge. In the cockpit of the A321, Captain Davies and his first officer exchanged a look of alarm. Chicago Center, American 812. Can you advise the reason for the sudden vector and descent? We have passengers moving about the cabin. American 812, be advised there is active military traffic in your vicinity. The course change is for your safety. Comply immediately. The airliner banked sharply to the south, the sudden movement, jostling passengers and sending a ripple of anxiety through the cabin. Catherine felt the turn in her bones, the change in engine pitch, the subtle G-force, pressing her into her seat. Her civilian mask held firm, but behind her eyes, the combat pilot was calculating angles, escape vectors, and probabilities. "What's happening? Why are we turning around?" Maya asked, her voice tight with a worry that was quickly spreading. A flight attendant hurried down the aisle, her professional smile strained at the edges. "Just a minor route adjustment from air traffic control, everyone. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." Catherine unbuckled her belt, her movement swift and sure. "Excuse me," she said, catching the attendant's eye with a gaze that was steady and impossible to ignore. "I saw the F-15s before we turned. This isn't just a route adjustment, is it?" "The captain hasn't informed us of anything unusual," the attendant replied, her voice a little too high, her eyes darting nervously toward the cockpit. But the lie was plain to see. Catherine sat back down, her mind a whirlwind of tactical scenarios. Arthur was watching her, his professorial gaze now tinged with a deep analytical curiosity. "You seem to know what's going on, far more than a logistics consultant should." Before she could formulate a reply, a collective gasp went through the cabin. The two F-15s had closed the distance and were now flying in a tight, menacing escort formation, one off each wing. Their powerful forms were terrifyingly close enough to see the pilots in their cockpits, their helmets turned toward the airliner. Panic began to bubble in earnest. "Ladies and gentlemen, please stay calm," the captain's voice came over the intercom. But the professional veneer was gone, replaced by an audible strain. "As you can see, we are being escorted by the United States Air Force as a precautionary measure. There's no immediate danger to our flight." Maya clutched the armrest, her knuckles white. "This is not happening. This is not normal. Why are they escorting us?" Catherine's voice cut through her rising fear, calm and authoritative, a beacon in the growing storm. "Those pilots are the best in the world. They're positioning themselves to protect us, to shield us. We are safer with them here than we were 10 minutes ago." Arthur was staring at her now, truly studying her, the pieces clicking into place in his historian's mind. "You said you were in logistics consulting." I've read a lot about military aviation," Catherine deflected weakly, but she knew the facade was cracking, shattering under the pressure of the moment. In the lead F-15, the situation went from critical to catastrophic. "Chicago Center, Eagle lead. The target is now actively jamming all commercial frequencies. I repeat, we are under a full-spectrum electronic warfare attack." Instantly, a deafening cacophony of white noise and shrieking static erupted in the IUIC cockpit of Flight 812. Warning lights flashed across the console like a dying Christmas tree. "We've lost all communication," Captain Davies yelled to his first officer over the din. "Everything's jammed. Autopilot is disengaging. We're blind and deaf." The airliner bucked violently as it hit the jet wash from one of the fighters. "Passengers!" cried out, a wave of pure terror washing over the cabin. The flight attendants struggled to maintain order, their own fear now evident on their faces. Arthur turned fully to Catherine, his voice low but intense. "Your composure is... It's not human. It's not the reaction of a consultant. Who are you?" Catherine knew she was out of time. The instincts that had kept her alive through dozens of combat sorties were screaming at her to act. "I don't panic well," she said simply. "It never helps." "You talk about them like you know them," Maya pressed, her voice trembling as she gestured toward the F-15 outside her window. "You know how they think, what they're going to do." Just then, the lead flight attendant, a woman named Sharon, pushed her way down the aisle, her face pale and drawn. She stopped at Catherine's row, her eyes locking onto her. Ma'am, the captain. He saw you through the security camera. Your reaction to all this? He needs to see you. Now. A hush fell over the surrounding seats. Arthur spoke for everyone, his voice a whisper. Her? Why her? Catherine was already on her feet, her body moving with an ingrained sense of purpose. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. But as she walked the longest walk of her life toward the cockpit, she felt the familiar heavy weight of command settling on her shoulders like a well-worn flight jacket. Her quiet life was over. Captain Davies looked up as she entered the chaotic cockpit, his face slick with sweat, his eyes wide with a fear he was barely holding in check. Ma'am, the attendant said you seem to understand military procedure. We are completely isolated up here. Our instruments are failing. We can't talk to anyone. And we have 2 fighters on our wing that are our only lifeline. What in God's name is happening? Catherine took in the chaotic scene in a single sweeping glance. Jammed radios, flashing. Warnings, 2 eagles flying a textbook defensive screen. Captain, what's your emergency frequency, your guard channel? 121.5, but it's just static like everything else. Try it again. They'll be monitoring it. They're waiting for us. In the lead eagle, Major Calloway watched in horror as the drone began to accelerate, closing the final distance to the helpless airliner. Jinx, the bogey's making a run on the civilian plane. It's going for the kill. It's happening now. He switched frequencies, praying for a miracle. American 812, this is Air Force Eagle Lead, on guard. If you can hear me, do you read? Captain Davies lunged for the mic, his hand shaking. Eagle Lead, this is American 812. We read you. We can hear you. American 812, you are the target of a hostile electronic attack. We need to get you out of here. Follow our lead precisely for evasive maneuvers. Davies looked at Catherine, a silent, desperate plea for guidance in his eyes. She gave a single, firm nod. The moment had come. She reached for the backup microphone. Captain, with your permission? He handed it over without a flicker of hesitation. Catherine keyed the mic, and a voice of pure, unshakable authority filled the frequency, a voice she hadn't used in 4 years, a voice that carried the weight of command and the ice of combat. Eagle Lead, this is Wraith. The response from the F-15 was a split second of stunned, absolute silence. Then Calloway's voice, laced with a disbelief so profound it was almost comical. Say again, American flight? Did you say Wraith? Eagle Lead, she repeated, her voice like chiseled ice. This is Colonel Catherine O'Malley, call sign Wraith. I am a passenger on your escort. The second F-15, Captain Wallace almost choked. Ram? Did he just say Wraith, as in the Wraith, the ghost of the Gulf? Calloway's reply was filled with a sudden, profound, and overwhelming respect that bordered on reverence. Wraith. This is Major David Calloway, call sign Ram. Ma'am, it is an unbelievable honor. The command she had tried to leave behind surged through her, a familiar and powerful current. Ram, give me a sit rep now. No bullshit. Ma'am, hostile drone is closing on your 6, still jamming all systems. We believe it's attempting to take over your flight controls or disable your aircraft for a forced landing. It's a capture attempt, not a kill. Understood. We need to clear this airspace. Find us a military field we can divert to, somewhere secure. I'll coordinate defensive maneuvers with the flight crew here. Affirmative, Wraith. Travis Air Force Base is the closest secure field, about a 20-minute flight at this speed. We'll clear a path. Captain Davies and his first officer were staring, their mouths agape. The clipped professional exchange, the instant, unquestioning deference from the fighter pilot. This was no consultant. This was a commander. Wraith, Catherine continued, her voice now the only calm in a universe of chaos. I'm going to have the captain execute a series of high-G defensive turns to try and break the drone's data link. I need you and your wingman to keep that bogey off our tail. You are cleared to engage if it maintains its hostile approach. Roger that, Wraith, Calloway said, and she could hear the fierce grin in his voice. "Ma'am, it is damn good to have you back in the fight." A storm of emotions washed over Catherine. The peace she had sought, the quiet she had craved, it was all an illusion. This was who she was. She turned to the stunned flight crew. "Captain, I'm going to need you to listen to me very carefully. I'm about to ask you to fly this airplane in a way you never have before." News of the exchange had already spread like wildfire through the cabin, passed in whispers. Arthur Vance, the history professor, was the one who put it all together. "Wraith," he said, his voice hushed with awe, to the passengers around him. "Did you hear that? The pilot called her Wraith, the ghost of the Gulf." An older man in a veteran's cap across the aisle looked up, his eyes wide. "Wraith? Not Colonel Catherine O'Malley? I read a book about her. She's a living legend. Took out an entire enemy radar installation single-handedly in a storm. They said she could make an F-22 disappear, vanish from radar, strike, and be gone before they knew what hit them. That's why they called her the Wraith." Maya's eyes were wide with a new kind of wonder. "The woman from 21A. She's a war hero." "If that's her," the veteran said, his voice thick with emotion, "then we have an angel on our wing, and 2 more flying escort." In the cockpit, Catherine was orchestrating a symphony of survival, her instructions to Captain Davies perfectly synchronized with the F-15's movements. "Captain, on my mark, hard bank right. 30 degrees. Pull 2 Gs. Ram, Jinx, be ready to brake and engage." The airliner groaned under the strain, but Davies, trusting the voice on the radio, followed her commands. The drone, surprised by the aggressive maneuver from a civilian craft, was forced to adjust, giving Calloway the opening he needed. "Wraith, this is Ram. I have a clean shot. Request permission to engage." "You are weapons free, Ram. Take it down." From the windows of the airliner, the passengers watched in stunned silence as one of the F-15s peeled away, a thin white trail leaping from its wing. The missile crossed the sky in a heartbeat, and the drone vanished in a silent, brilliant flash of light. A spontaneous cheer erupted through the cabin. Eagle lead to Wraith, threat neutralized. "The airspace is clear. We're taking you home, ma'am." "Copy, Ram, and thank you. You and your wingman were flawless." "Ma'am," Calloway said, his voice formal again, filled with emotion, "on behalf of Eagle Flight, and I suspect the entire Air Force, we'd like to request permission to perform an honor escort to Travis." Catherine paused, a lump forming in her throat, the 4 years of self-imposed exile melting away in that single gesture of respect. "Permission granted, Major. It would be an honor." As American Flight 812 began its final safe approach to Travis Air Force Base, the 2 F-15 Eagles broke formation and performed a graceful, sweeping aerial salute, a breathtaking tribute reserved for the icons of military aviation, a final welcome home. The passengers, now fully aware of who was in their cockpit, watched in silent, tearful awe. "She sat right next to me," Arthur whispered, to no one in particular, shaking his head, "and she was reading a history book." Maya stared out the window, a new kind of hero worship in her eyes, one not for a celebrity or an influencer, but for a quiet woman in a gray sweater. She was just so normal. "The real heroes always are," the veteran said with a knowing smile. "They don't wear capes. They just answer the call when it comes." As the plane touched down on the military runway, flanked by fire trucks and officials' vehicles, Catherine O'Malley knew her quiet life was over. But as she watched the F-15s peel away into the California sky, she felt a sense of belonging, of purpose, that she hadn't felt in years. The quiet consultant in seat 21A was gone. In her place was Wraith, a legend who had been called from retirement, not by orders from a general, but by the quiet, unbreakable instinct to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The passengers of Flight 812 would tell the story for the rest of their lives, the day they flew with a ghost and learned that the greatest heroes are the ones you'd never notice, sitting quietly by the window, waiting for the moment they are needed most.